On today's special program from Feed the Children, a special report from the Caribbean island of Jamaica.
Really was quite devastating. Before the eye came over, the roofs up here flew off. And what it didn't pull off the first time, when the eye had passed, and it came back again, and all the rest of the roofs just disappeared.
Jamaica's people are cold, hungry, and without a home after Hurricane Gilbert slammed into Jamaica with 115-mile-per-hour winds.
So I was alone with the children, and then the rooftop went off. So after the rooftop went off, now I take the 3 small ones, run over the school with them. And by the time I reached back over, everything was gone.
Also, find out how you can help the people of Jamaica. All this today as we report on Killer Storm Gilbert on a special edition of Feed the Children.
Jamaica, one of the tiny dots in the Caribbean. Before Hurricane Gilbert, Americans thought of Jamaica as an island paradise. Now there's despair in paradise. Despair brought at the hands of Hurricane Gilbert. Born off the coast of Africa, Hurricane Gilbert grew up quick. The strongest hurricane on record, Gilbert slammed into Jamaica with 115-mile-per-hour winds, breaking apart everything in its path. The devastation that followed is almost indescribable. Roofs ripped off houses, huge trees torn from their roots, some broken in half. Some villages were left without a building standing. At times it seemed the wind would never stop. Too many Jamaicans huddled inside tiny shacks with thin metal roofs. Gilbert was more like hell on earth, and to thousands more the pain and suffering continues. Most of the island is without electricity, and it may be months before service is totally restored. Total damage is estimated at $8 billion. $8 billion in a country that struggles to survive behind the glitter of the beachfront hotels. 4 out of 5 roofs destroyed, leaving meager belongings subject to continued rain and more damage. Most of the islanders depend on their gardens to survive, to provide food for their families. Now there's nothing. The country's banana crop has been destroyed. The immediate need is food. Since Hurricane Gilbert, supplies of food, clothing, and medicine have been shipped to Jamaica, but thousands still search for food to feed their families. Jamaica cries out for help. Everything they know has been destroyed. All hope is gone.
Well, the hurricane was devastating. I've been up in the mountain areas. That's especially hard hit. A lot of things downtown, of course, utilities out. It just absolutely just damaged all over the island. And I'm sure that areas that we're not able to get into are even worse.
Hurricane Gilbert was uninvited, unexpected, unwanted, and unavoidable. To the people of Jamaica, Hurricane Gilbert was unbelievable. It's been called the storm of the century. It took airplanes and threw them into trees. This airplane was split in half. This is the tail section, and the body of the twin engine is about 50 feet away. 80% of the homes in Jamaica were damaged. Over 500,000 people have been left homeless. Wherever we have gone and asked the question, what's your greatest need? They have said, we need food. We need to be fed. Please, send baby food. We need rice. We need beans. We at Feed the Children are committing 1 million pounds of food to be sent to Jamaica immediately. It's going to cost $250,000. There's an address on your screen. Would you take out your checkbook and write out a generous check to Feed the Children and send it to Box 36, that's Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Our zip is 73101. Whether your gift is for $10 or $50 or $100 or maybe even $500 or $1,000, please do the very best that you can. This is an emergency situation. We need your help, and we need it today. When we come to a situation like this, we ask the question, what about the children? People immediately said, we need baby food, and we want you to know that the first containers that left the States for Jamaica had baby food on them. We're here not only to help the children, but also other people who are in need and who are hungry. We can do it with your help. Maybe you'd rather call in your pledge. There's a phone number on your screen. Please, just pick up the phone right now. Make that call and say, we'll help. Yes, we'll help today. Let me thank you for your generosity. God bless you.
Well, when Gilbert reached my house, I feel the house top start to shake up, and me and my grandchildren, them and me have a daughter expected, and my son, we run out and we come over the school here. And when we go over there, the house tops, east of the house top come up and the water come in. And we couldn't get anything. The mattress wet up and the clothes in them wet up.
On September 12, 1988, Hurricane Gilbert stormed over Jamaica and its population of over 2 million, leaving well over 80% of homes severely damaged and over 500,000 people homeless. Without any consideration of rich or poor, Gilbert viciously tore into a poor district named Mountain View, taking these families' meager homes and possessions and turning them into mere piles of rubbish.
The rain, both of them coming along same time, the rain and the breeze. So I was alone with the children, and then the rooftop went off. So after the rooftop went off now, I take the 3 small one, run over the school with them, and by the time I reached back over, everything was gone, because the water off the hill came in, and then the mattress and everything like that was gone. So I couldn't get to save anything.
Delorine's home was in shambles. She and her 4 children were forced to spend the next 2 weeks in a nearby school that was also near the point of collapse from the damage left by Hurricane Gilbert. Since then, they've barely put their home back together. Finding pieces of old wood and tin, they've assembled this tiny shack they call home. With no money or building supplies and no nails to secure the roof, it just sits on the shack, ready to be blown off again. With so many people hurting in Jamaica, no one is able to rush to their aid.
I would like some help to fix back my home, and I need some mattress and clothes and things like that. And then the little baby got sick. I had was to take her to the children's hospital, so I got some medicine and things for her.
With all these problems, the children are still happy to do what they can to help. Susan is outside busily washing the few clothes that they were able to salvage. No, it isn't a washing machine, just a simple brush and tub. At the same time, Kanisha is also outside washing all the dishes that remained undestroyed by Gilbert, using a certain plant as a soap since they can't afford more. And the oldest son, Renford, is cooking on their stove, which is a wheel rim, while at the same time fighting off the flies and bees. And sweet little Kaylita is putting on her treasured shoes that luckily were rescued from the destruction of the storm. Everything they do has to be done outside, since their little shack can barely squeeze all 5 of them in at the same time. Their situation is desperate. Susan can only wonder if there will be anyone to help them when they need help so desperately. While Renford, the oldest child, tries to be the man of the house, he too seems bewildered, confused, as he worries about whether there will be enough food for his baby sister, Kaylita. Is there anyone out there that can possibly help a family that has been beaten down by Hurricane Gilbert?
It means our fruits have all gone, and particularly in the rural areas where people depend on fruits a lot as part of the food. The coffee berries are all gone. It will take another 1.5 years to bring that back. The cocoa fruits are gone. The bananas are all gone. That, luckily, through suckers, may take another 9 months or so to come back. But the coconut palms are gone, and that's a 3-year crop.
Recently, I read an article in the New York Times. It went like this: the have-nots in Jamaica have less after Hurricane Gilbert. The reason is most of them lost their roofs. Everything they owned got wet. The wealthy, the middle class, they usually have insurance. They can get loans. But the have-nots, they can't get loans. They need food. They need roofing. Yes, they need mattresses, as one lady said yesterday. Everything we owned got wet. No one chooses to be in a hurricane. No one chooses the situation in which Jamaica finds herself. The government, they're doing all they can do. But it's impossible to help everyone. That's why I wanted you to meet my new friend, little Kalita. Isn't she cute? You see, this is one of the recipients of the food that we're bringing in. There's an address on your screen. Would you take it down? Make out a generous check to feed the children. Send it to Box 36. That's Oklahoma City. Our zip is 73101. When we came to Jamaica, we asked the question, what about the children? What about children like little Kalita? That's why we're bringing in over 1 million pounds of food. We don't believe that a child should go to bed hungry after Hurricane Gilbert. I'm sure you agree with me. Perhaps you'd rather phone in your pledge. Please, pick up the phone. Make that call right now. Whether your gift is $10 or $50 or $100 or maybe even $500 or $1,000, do the best that you can. Help us. Help children like little Kalita. Thank you and God bless you.
Really was quite devastating. I mean, before that I came over, the roofs up here flew off. And what it didn't pull off the first time, when the eye had passed and it came back again, and all the rest of the roofs just disappeared.
Well, for one thing, my greatest worry was for the severely handicapped ones we have in the Tegrin House unit. And I kept looking out to see what was happening there and praying at the same time that nothing would happen to those.
Many of Claudette's fears came to pass. She and her 90 orphans have an emergency that you need to know about immediately. Hurricane Gilbert has stolen much of the only home that these helpless children live in. They have no other place to go. Their only warm shelter has been nearly taken away. Their kitchen demolished with no electricity and no refrigeration. Their food is down to the barest minimum.
We need food. We have a little that we are going on with, but we're going to need more food. We need some food supplements because we think that by feeding to the children a lot of salted food and so on, we're going to disrupt their health situation. So we'd like some food supplements. We need cleaning materials. We need some bedding. Mattresses, again, is something that, because we now have to be sticking them 2 and 3 in a bed, because we have lost quite a lot of our mattresses and beds for them.
The roofing to their bedrooms, to their school, and even to their bathroom was ripped off, shredded, and thrown down. The hurricane destroyed almost everything these orphan children depend upon.
At the moment, my big concern is keeping dry. We have lost the total roof from the children's home, and we have lost the roof from my house. I've managed to patch that up because it's a fairly small area. But whenever it rains, we just sort of sit and, feel our spirits go right down to nadir, because we know the rain is coming in, it's wet, the children clean up, you have to go back over to dry up water. What little things we have in the building, they get wet again, and this is really very, very difficult for us.
The damage is extensive, and to make matters worse, the rainy season has begun. The children struggle daily to keep the rain from completely destroying what remains of the building, constantly sweeping the water out and doing all they can to help. But most of the children are unable to do anything.
We are overtaken now by mentally handicapped children. We have 40 severely handicapped. We have another 15 mildly to moderately handicapped, and the rest that make up the 90 are supposedly normal children, although one could classify them as socially handicapped. Those have had family failures of one sort or another. Some of them have behavioral problems, and others of them are just in need of care and protection.
There's much work to be done, and these orphans have no mom or dad to help them. The loneliness they face each day is now magnified by what Hurricane Gilbert has taken away.
The trip back from Hurricane Gilbert is not a short one. How would you like to have it rain in every afternoon? How would you like to cope with the elements and you don't have any windows? I think one lady put it best when she said, I can't find a handle to all my problems after Hurricane Gilbert. Whatever you give is going to make that trip back shorter, and it's going to make it a lot easier. Yes, they need food. Obviously, they need roofing. They need bedding. We are going to help this children's home Because that's the question we ask when we go to a country where there's been a disaster. What about the children? Where are there children who need our help? I want you to know that whatever you give, it will count. You can make a difference. For us to help this home, we need your help. There's an address on your screen. Please take it down. Make out as generous a check as you possibly can to feed the children. Send it to Box 36. That's Oklahoma City, or zip is 73101. After a hurricane, everyone wants to get back to normal. It just doesn't happen. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of patience. If we don't help this children's home, it's going to be the children who pay the price of the hurricane. So please, there's a number on your screen. Pick up the phone, dial that number, and make your pledge and say, I want to help those hurricane victims, and I want to help them today. I know you'll make your pledge as generous as possible. Thank you.
A reporter for the Kansas City Star called Gilbert heartless, a storm that left the poor poorer. Jamaica's people are not rich, and Gilbert's fury will make a hard life harder for months and months to come. Electricity throughout the island is out, meaning factories can't open. And factories that can't open equal workers without jobs. When most workers are facing rebuilding their homes and their lives, they're left without a paycheck. There are thousands of Christians throughout the island of Jamaica, now worshiping in the open after Hurricane Gilbert knocked their church walls to the ground. School desks are scattered around like toothpicks dumped out of a box. Where rooms should be active with the laughter of children learning, they're quiet and still. The agricultural system is in shambles as Jamaica's banana, sugarcane, and poultry industries face huge losses. Farmers borrowed money to finance this year's crops, but now face an uncertain future. All of Jamaica's banana crop is destroyed, mounting losses of $400 million. Relief is on the way, and many Americans have been generous. But Gilbert wasn't just another storm, and relief efforts will have to be just as big.
Is there life after Hurricane Gilbert? This is not trash. This is what was damaged by the hurricane. The teachers all were ready for school. They had their signs made. They'd spent a lot of time. The rooms were decorated, and then Hurricane Gilbert. Needless to say, there's lots of frustration. I'm sure that you felt some frustration. It seems like every time you turn on your television, your radio, you go to your mailbox, somebody is asking you for money. You probably feel like you've been bombarded. You know, in the New Testament, Christ said, when someone compels you to go a mile, go the second mile. Now, the Romans, by law, could make a Jew carry their army pack, which weighed 90 pounds, the first mile. But Christ said, that's the law mile. The second mile is the love mile. When a natural disaster hits, regardless of how many times you've given, the spiritual reaction should be love. The people of Jamaica need your help. Would you call that number on your screen? Whether your gift is $10 or $100 or even more, do the best that you can. At this particular church school, there are 185 young students. We're going to help feed them lunch. They need our help. They need it right now. Call that number. Stand with us. Please don't give in to compassion or donor fatigue. Give a spiritual reaction, love, during this time of crisis. There can be life after Hurricane Gilbert if you'll call that number and make your pledge. Thank you. One of the questions that's always asked when there's a hurricane, an earthquake, a famine, does the food, the clothing, the medicine, does it get to the people? I want you to know that my hat's off to the Jamaican government. They have given permission to the churches to deliver food and clothing through November the 30th. In fact, while I was in Jamaica, a plane load of our food came in. I personally helped unload it. It went from the airport to the churches, from the churches into the hands of the people who needed it. I want to assure you that the food and the clothing that Feed the Children is taking in will get into the hands of those who need it the most. So if you haven't called, please call that number on the screen and do the best that you can. Whatever you give, we'll see that the food and the clothing gets to the people who really need it.
You can help ease the suffering and the devastation after Hurricane Gilbert. Your emergency gift will send food, clothing, and medicine through Feed the Children's air and ground emergency relief. Our pledge is to send over 1 million pounds of food to Jamaica, and we need your help to carry this out. If you prefer, you may call in your gift. Operators are standing by to assist you. If the line is busy, please write down the number and try again in a few minutes. Your brothers and sisters in Jamaica are depending on your support.
What do you do with the uncontrollable experiences of life? Recently, Hurricane Gilbert raced across the little island of Jamaica. The over 2 million people realized they couldn't control that hurricane. There are a lot of things in life we can't control. We can't control oil prices, takeovers. We can't always control what the president and Congress does. We're always facing the uncontrollable experiences of life. I want to share with you how to control the uncontrollable. And the only way you're going to be able to do it is you can control your reaction to the uncontrollable. One of the best illustrations is Christ and the disciples crossing the lake. Jesus had been preaching. He was tired. He went in the bottom of the boat to go to sleep. And while he was asleep, a storm came up, a ferocious storm. In fact, the disciples thought that they were going to perish. They focused their attention on the storm instead of on Christ, who was in the bottom of the boat. When you look at that uncontrollable experience, when you look at your storm, I guarantee you, you'll have an inner storm on the inside. Where do those storms come from? Hurricanes. Where do those people come from who go in classrooms and shoot little children? Where does tragedy come from? Where does divorce come from? You may be like the disciples right now, and you're saying, if God doesn't do something, I'm going to perish because I can't control this experience. Did you know the disciples did not realize there was another option? They couldn't control that storm, but they could control their reaction to that storm. They were going around wringing their hands. You may be wringing your hands. You may be taking drugs. You may be on alcohol. They didn't know they had an option. But finally, they went to the bottom of the boat and they woke Christ up, who, by the way, was asleep, peaceful, and calm. Do you know what happened when Hurricane Gilbert came to the little island of Jamaica? My good friend, Bishop Blair, preached to his congregation on Sunday night from Psalm 46. And you know what it says? The God of Jacob is our refuge. The God of Jacob is with us. And he said, if you can't remember that, remember 7:11. And he said, when it's all over, we'll still be around. And he said his people left talking about Psalm 46, and when they came back after Hurricane Gilbert, they were still talking about Psalm 46. Now, here is the key. Instead of looking at Hurricane Gilbert and having a heart full of fear, they focused on Psalm 46. And as they focused on Psalm 46, fear was gone, faith sprung forth, and they faced a hurricane. Now listen, you may be trying to control the uncontrollable. And if you are, you've got an inner storm, you feel like you're going to perish, you feel like your whole world's come apart. But I want you to know something. If you look at the Scriptures and you look at God's Word, I guarantee you God will give you an inner peace, and you can control your reaction to the uncontrollable. Isaiah 26:3 says, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in thee. Did you know the Bible promises you perfect peace? Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, Larry, if you knew the mess I was in, if you knew this uncontrollable experience I'm going through, you wouldn't say that. The best illustration is Christ was in the boat. There was a storm raging. The disciples were on top trying to control the storm. They could not control the storm. It was uncontrollable. And I guarantee you, in that experience you're going through, it's uncontrollable. Why are you trying to control it? The only thing you can control in the midst of that is your reaction to that uncontrollable experience. God promised you perfect peace. That's right. I don't know what you're going through. God promises you perfect peace. If it's financial disaster, whatever you're going through, that's God's promise. Step 2, that will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. You know what mistake you and I make? The giant mistake, the common mistake. We look at the storm instead of God's Word. And that's what Bishop Blair did in Kingston, Jamaica. He took his people's eyes off of the hurricane and they focused it on God's Word. And when they did, instead of leaving the church and saying, we're going to all be blown away, they left the church saying, the God of Jacob is with us. He's our refuge. Point 3. This is so important. You trust in what you focus on. And they didn't look at the storm. They focused on God's Word. And when they focused on God's Word, they began to trust God. They knew they couldn't control the storm, but they could control their reaction. So they left church in the midst of a terrible hurricane, trusting in the living God. And I want you to know, wherever you are, it's going to work for you. Number 1, God promises you perfect peace. It comes about, number 2, as you keep your mind stayed on God. And number 3, when your mind is stayed on Him, you're going to trust Him instead of looking over at that uncontrollable experience. And God's going to help you control your reaction. Isn't that great? I mean, when I went down there and Bishop Blair shared that with me, that just really encouraged me because I knew I could share it with you and it would encourage you. Now, I've only talked to you for 5 or 6 minutes. I've got a whole tape that I want to send you. So when you write this week and you send your gift, ask for offer number 60, how to control the uncontrollable. That's what I've called this tape. I want to send it to you. So regardless of the size of your offering, just say, send me offer number 60. And remember, our address is very simple. Feed the Children. That's Box 36, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Our zip is 73101. And if you want to, enclose your prayer request. I'll pray with you and I'll believe with you. And I guarantee you, God will give you inner peace. God bless you.